Hi, my name's Andy Parks, and I'm the Executive Director of the Vintage Aero Flying Museum, where we fly this Fokker DVIII. And interestingly enough, we found something about it from history that shows that we have to make a change to our rudder. We've been flying this airplane for about 90 hours now, and cross-country and also around the airport here. The tail on the ground is a little tricky, and we've been trying to figure out where we're having our difficulties. One of the things we thought about is that the counterbalance up here on the front of the rudder, if that's large or larger than it needs to be, it'll act and counteract your movements back here, making it a little more tricky, oversensitive in many respects. And we had the great opportunity within our collection to look at the only surviving piece of one of these aircraft from World War I, an original vertical stabilizer and rudder from a Fokker E5, factory number 207 and museum number, or German Army number 149. So let's go take a look at that and we'll see how this measures out. Okay.
Turn it off.
Yep. The overall dimension of this rudder is about 870 millimeters. The leading edge here of the rudder is about 330 millimeters from the tip of the rudder right to the center post back here. And what we wanted to do is to see on the original piece what these dimensions were and whether or not this rudder matches it. Interestingly enough, the plans that this plane was built off of were plans drawn by Reinhold Plotz, the original engineer, the engineer under Anthony Fokker that developed this airplane in 1918. Reinhold Plotz redrew the plans for Ed Swearinger in the late 60s, and he drew them from memory. No plans existed at that time, and he got what we believed was the overall size of this rudder correct, but we were concerned about this area right here. So let's go inside to our museum. Let's take a look at the original piece. This is our original rudder. I said 207 outside, but it's 2790. You can see the original Fokker emblem right here. And this rudder came off of Fokker E5. Matter of fact, down here at the bottom of the rudder, you'll notice the E5 insignia below the Fokker insignia down there. There's E5 right there. And if I can get close enough, we'll look at the Fokker, original Fokker decal there. What we'll do now is I'll go inside and we'll measure this piece and we'll look at how it compares to the rudder that's on our Fokker DVIII outside. An interesting comparison. So here once again, this is an original Fokker E5 rudder. It's a rudder that my dad actually picked up in Paris back in the late 70s, thinking it was a Fokker D7 rudder. When we got it, we saw the E5 down here and the serial number 2790, which let us trace it back through the German records to find out that this was Fokker E5 149 for the German Army. Saw service in World War I. Once again, we took a measure and we realized that the overall dimension of this rudder is exactly what we were expecting it to be. About 87 millimeters overall, but the distance from the post to the nose is right around 280 millimeters, which outside on ours it's 330. So what we see is that there's more balance in front and less rudder effectively, because this center post is effectively 2 inches too far back on the replica, and it should be in this position as you see it here. So let's go look at the plans that they drew back in the 60s, and we'll see how we're going to resolve this. This is where we build our airplanes for the museum, and the airplanes that we have. This is a Sopwith Camel SPAD 13 and SE5s that we're working on here, but it's also where I built my Fokker DVIII. And so what I want to do is let's look at the original plans, or the plans that Reinhold Plotz did in 1960, and we'll look from there. The plans that we used to build our Fokker DVIII were the plans that were designed and redrawn by Reinhold Plotz in 1967 for Ed Swearinger when he was working on a replica, the first replica of the Fokker DVIII since World War I. Okay. Plans again were built or drawn in 1967, as you see here, the whole fuselage plan. that Reinhold Plotz redrew, all in metric, which isn't a problem. Some better plans here. The piece we want to look at is the rudder right here. And what you see on the rudder are the dimensions there in millimeters, with an overall dimension of 880 millimeters. I think when I was at the museum I said 87. I meant 880 millimeters. That front balance piece being 330 millimeters. If we get a little closer we might be able to see that. So what we're going to do is rebuild our rudder to the dimensions of the known original rudder up at the museum. And we'll see how that works. Now if you like what we're doing, follow us on our YouTube site here, and we'll start showing the progress of the welding up of the new rudder and then the test flights as we bring the aircraft back into original specs and original rudder specs. Please visit us at VAFM, VintageAeroFlyingMuseum.org, and follow us again as we build our Fokker D8 to the original specs of the rudder from the 149.